We are now live, so enough of the swears, please.
Uh-oh. Danger, danger.
Oh, man. Well, what a week. And indeed, what a day. Hello there, everybody. Welcome along. Saying, by all means, jump on the chat room. At which point, it might be a good idea for me to jump on the chat room and say hello to everybody. But myself and Alyssa are just kind of getting ourselves nicely settled. And indeed, you've got our special guest that's joining us, who's having a little bit of a technical conflab at the moment, but as soon as he's got himself sorted, he'll be joining us as well. Right. And apparently it's now taking its time installing updates. So Rob's with us, but we'll get it sorted.
We'll have plenty of stuff to talk about. I mean, but the chat room is up and running. Graham Small says good evening to everyone.
Okay. I'm sure Rob, I'll send him a message. We'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Take your time, sir. Okay. Right. So on the chat today, and indeed what was going to be our state of play for today's show, was going to be talking about WonderCon and the rather surprised announcement of the badge sales for this event, which is actually being done now. We're going to talk about this on air, but I just want to clarify it first. Is this the first time they've done it through the CCI website?
Yes. We'll talk about this more in detail, because that was very interesting to me. But I don't think it's so much of a surprise that they announced it all of a sudden when they did. There was some rumblings. They had revamped the page a bit the week before. So we kind of had a clue that it was imminent and have been watching. So I don't think that was so much of a surprise as it was how it was implemented. Yeah.
So we'll talk about that, of course. But at which point, Alyssa suggested that we talk about Wizard World and their current financial strifes. At which point, she then also tagged into a tweet Rob Salkovich, who I need to talk to him to find out if I'm pronouncing his surname right. That's probably a good idea. Well, Rob's been covering this in fine detail. I said, all right, well, shall I message him? And about an hour ago, he said, yep. I'll come on and we'll talk about it. He's having a little bit of technical issues at this point, but as soon as he gets sort of sorted out and installs Windows updates, those cursed Windows updates, curse you. He'll join us. Craig Linders, greetings from a cold and snowy South Dakota. And I also saw that off the back of our chat last week. Oh, hello. So there you go. There's Rob, who's joined us. No camera as yet. I think he's just getting himself sorted. Okay. Yes, off the back of our chat last week, he got himself a nice little present off the back of a Captain America item, which was very nice. Check out Graham's thing. Hello. Oh, there he is. How are you doing, sir? I don't know. Have you done Hangouts before? Because we need to implement the lower third if possible. The file that I sent you. We're kind of stepping out onto the high wire as we put the high wire up. Pretty.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Ah, we have that issue. We can hear you. You can't hear us.
Yeah.
Send them a message. Oh dear. Bear with me. Hang on. Right. Okay, so we're at the countdown, but we're just sending a message to Rob to let him know that we can hear him. I don't think he can hear us.
Would you like me to send that while you start the show, Leonard?
I think I've just sent it now, but yeah, okay, so we'll turn the screen sharing off and we'll sort it. He's disappeared again, but we'll sort it. This is what happens when we have a last-minute guest, you see. This is all the fun of the fair. But there we go. In absolutely ages, I've got myself my cup of tea. I actually have a cup of tea to hand. In the first time in like 3 weeks, because I've just been running around. Bear with me a second. I'm also going to get the earpiece sorted out as well. And plug myself in so we're nicely sorted. There we go. Right. So I've got my tea. I've got my guests, kind of. And we've got ourselves stuff to talk about. So we have ourselves a show. Welcome to Talkin Comic-Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. My name's Leonard Sultana. And each and every Sunday we talk Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, con culture, things that's happening in pop culture in terms of films, television, and comics. And we're only a couple of weeks away from Christmas. So at this point now, we're all just kind of like getting into the fight. We're in that kind of mode where it's the last couple of weeks of school. Let's just relax, enjoy ourselves, and chill out a little bit, and get our final sort of like Christmas plans sorted out. I've kind of been upsetting the missus. I'm not going to lie. Off the back of last week, we were talking about Christmas gifts to send each other, at which point I turned around and said that I'm not allowed to buy anything for myself in case the missus wants to buy it. At which point I went out and bought a comic from Forbidden Planet, a signed Dr. Afro #1. So I'm in the bad books at this point. So I'm not in the I'm in the doghouse for buying presents for myself again. But there we have it. We're hopefully going to be joining. Oh, hang on a second. Forbidden access. Oh no! Let's see if we can get Rob on.
I was going to
tell you what. I'll introduce my other guest, and she can talk about the forum and other things while we try and get Robert involved. Alyssa Franks from the Friends of CC Forum. Hello, Alyssa. How are you?
I'm well. Take care of Rob. He, I think he needs to perhaps be on a different browser. That might work, or reinstall Google Hangouts or something along those lines. How has everybody else's week been? Mine has been fairly busy. What with getting ready for Christmas. I will do a shout out to Aaron, SDCC Fit, who started up the hashtag No Holiday Gain Challenge this season, and we are getting a fair amount of people who are responding with their gains and losses. Yeah, you know, a half a pound here, a half a pound there, that kind of thing. But we're really just trying to limit it so that there is a support group out there. Search for the hashtag on Twitter and or on the forum, and we will try and keep the the weight gain down to, you know, a few pounds, not 20.
Yeah, well, I mean, this was off the back of Thanksgiving, and I'm kind of getting it off the back of just eating, quite frankly, crap over the course of the Christmas party season. So no, I need to kind of be a little bit more disciplined myself. So I'm following the hashtag with much interest.
It is the Christmas party season. You're absolutely right. That's right up there with and I am happy to say, as you alluded to earlier, there are a few people who are actually receiving some geeky gifts this year, which, yay, no more socks and unders. Yeah. So my 17-year-old said to me this morning, Mom, I don't need any more socks. Really, I don't need any more socks. So let's see. I did notice that Stan Lee, just in a bit of geek news, Stan Lee Collectibles, I think it's Stan Lee Collectibles, are going to be doing, speaking about gifts, doing subscription boxes. Another another person.
Another one. Another subscription box. Lovely.
I've given up all of mine. The only one I still get is Loot Crate, and that's only because I paid for a 6-month subscription. I just don't need the crap. I'm going to, and here's a thought to people. Yes, I did say that on air. It happens. Yes, I could digress. Anyway, here's an idea for everybody. If you have extra stuff from all of those boxes that you don't want to resell, or you don't want to do anything, that doesn't have that much value, take it all down to your local, either Toys for Tot or giving, any sort of a kid kind of a giving thing. I had a couple of board games, older board games, like age 12 and up, Risk, Mass Effect Risk I had, and they loved it. They're like, stuff for older kids. Yay. So that's, and I've got a couple of mugs that I'm going to probably bring down there, to a Snoopy mug, because I'm never using a Snoopy mug. It's just, this is my preferred mug. I yelled at my son for actually using my San Diego mug.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the only boxes that we get in our house are the Collector Core, but also the Star Wars Smuggler's Bounty, which has actually lapsed because of some. We were running around, and myself and the missus got a bit distracted. And next thing you know, because it was under Caroline's name, and it lapsed. At which point, the really nice Empire Strikes Back pop was announced on the. So she's now running around. She's definitely trying to work out how she can actually get back onto the mailing list. So we're trying to sort ourselves out. But someone mentioned last week, and I didn't mention it on the Hangout purely because we kind of got distracted, and also I couldn't find the link. There has been the Funko 12 Days of Christmas. If you do go to the Funko blog, all the information is there about the items that they've been putting up on for sale just for the Christmas and festive season. Do check it out. I couldn't find a link, and I'm still struggling to find an actual proper working link directly for the 12 Days of Christmas. But if you check out the Funko blog, it's all up on there. So there we go. Just a couple more shows of the year to go. Next week is going to be an interview, hopefully, with Anthony Bresnikan from Entertainment Weekly. And also we're going to be talking to Mr. Mark Serby, who's going to be joining us regarding Rogue One, which opens up here in the UK on Wednesday, a day before the US. Yay! So just rubbing that in, just thought we'd go with that. So there we go. Right, I'm going to now go to my other guest and desperately hope mic, headphones, the works. Mr. Rob, I want to get your surname right, Salkovich. Because the thing is, I keep wanting to go Sadovich, because I'm a stand-up comic fan. So I like Mr. Sadovich. But no, hello there, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, listen, it's an absolute pleasure. This is off the back of a tweet that, a conversation about the show that myself and Alyssa had before we were going to get started. Alyssa wanted to talk about Wizard World and their current financial climate. At which point, she then mentioned a couple of links and the coverage that you've been doing over the course of the last month or so. Now, I'm certain that a number of people out there have been kind of paying attention to the basic headlines that people have been hearing, certainly about the controversy that came out about Wizard World, certainly regarding a member of their staff. In fact, I believe it's the brother of the CEO that kind of put themselves very much in hot water. I think the best thing to do is, because Alyssa mentioned that you've been doing this fantastic work, and I had seen a number of your posts. Shall we invite you on? And that's exactly what we've done. So I think the best thing to do is actually start with the basic lay of the land of where it's all kind of, the wheels have come off the bus, if you know what I mean. And I think it did start really with Stephen Seamus. When did this all kind of come about? I mean, how did it get announced, or how did it get found out?
Well, I think the actual roots of this go back much farther. So Wizard World, as a lot of people know, started out as a magazine for collectors, and then they started doing the conventions. And a few years ago, I think it was 2013, is that they went from a privately held company that was founded by Gareb Shamus and his brothers to raise some money on the public market. So they had a stock offering, and a bunch of people invested in the company. One of the guys who invested in the company was a financier named John Kessler, and he bought up a lot of the stock. He put a lot of his money into the company to allow them to expand their operations. And one of the things that happened was that Gareb Shamus, who was the founder of the company, left. He was the CEO, and he the circumstances of his departure are not well known to me, but he's now a fine artist, and he's working in Florida, I think. But his two brothers, Kenny and Stephen, remained with the company. Stephen was the chief marketing officer, and Kenny was on the board of directors. And Kessler brought in a guy named John Macaluso to be the CEO of the company, and he had very ambitious plans for where Wizard World was going to go. So they vastly expanded their circuit of conventions. They became very aggressive, and they started scheduling their conventions opposite local shows that had been well established in an effort to sort of win fans over more to the Wizard brand. And they were trying to get their economies of scale and everything going with how Wizard World, that's how they operate. And they also started a program in China, and they started a convention TV program. And they have dumped tons of money into both of these things, and none of it worked out. So last year, they started losing money really hand over fist. They lost $4.5 million on their various ventures. They had overexpanded into markets that were too big, that were too small to sustain their conventions. They lost a lot of money in China, and they really lost a lot of money on this Con TV thing. So the reason that we know all of this is that they're a publicly traded company, and they're required to file disclosures on their financials quarterly. So those of us in the business have been sort of watching these notes. I'm sorry, you had a question?
No, I just, that makes complete sense. That's why we know all of the information. Wonderful.
Yeah, because as somebody who writes about the business of Comic-Con, a lot of the companies that are involved in this, ReedPop, which runs New York Comic-Con, is a division of a much larger organization. Informa, which runs Fan Expo and some of the other shows, is a division of a much larger corporation that does all kinds of trade shows. So they're publicly traded. You can read their disclosures, but you get no information about their fan business in particular. If you're looking for a pure play in the fan convention space, which is now this gigantic multi-billion-dollar endeavor, the only place that you can actually find that information on the public record is by looking at what Wizard World is doing. So that's why we have access to all of this stuff. So we started seeing some signs earlier this year that things were not going so well for Wizard World. They've been spending huge amounts of money on slates of celebrity guests to come to their show. So last year in New Orleans, they had the entire cast of the Avengers basically at their show in New Orleans. New Orleans is not a top tier market, and they must have spent, $1 million, $1.5 million on getting this guest list in, and they were charging their fans huge amounts of money for VIP packages to get photos with Chris Evans and all of that kind of thing. And people started wondering, is this a sustainable model? And they started releasing their financials, and the first thing that happened is that they fired their accounting firm. So this is the company that had been keeping track of their money for a while and everything. That when you fire the guy who counts the money, that's never a good sign.
No.
And then the next thing that happened is that over the summer, John Macaluso, who was the CEO that was brought in after the Seamuses left to run the company, also left. So he was either retired or forced out. He was making an awful lot of money. He was making a higher level of compensation than his counterparts in any other fan convention business. So he left the company in June, and they brought in this other guy named John Mata, who was had previously been recruited to be on the board of directors. So you sort of got the idea that there was some kind of power play at work within the company, that one faction was not happy with the way that things were going, and they were trying to get different things going on. And then, then the shoes began to drop. So this thing that you had mentioned with Stephen Seamus. So Stephen Seamus was the chief.
That seemed to be kind of like the public face of it.
Yeah.
And it seemed that was the be all and end all of the issues that Wizard World had. At which point it kind of like peeled open all of this that happened on a more corporate level. And it's certainly, I mean, when you're saying there, it definitely feels like two camps. It's almost like the Seamuses were like the guys that started this thing in a garage somewhere and were still trying to keep it in that kind of free form manner, especially with the way that Stephen, I want to make sure I get the names right. It was Stephen. The way that Stephen was conducting himself. And then you've got the new board members in terms of Kessler and Matter, who are trying to steer the ship in a slightly more professional manner. Is that the kind of, am I reading it? That you're reading it right?
It's hard. That is one possible reading of it. So what happened with Stephen Seamus is where the real sort of public, explosion happened. So Stephen, the Seamus family is known to fandom. Love them or hate them, they are a long-standing institution within fandom, and Wizard World, like, they are the face of the Wizard World brand. So Stephen was the chief marketing officer, and before his brother Gareb left as the CEO, he had arranged, apparently, what's alleged here is that they had arranged this employment contract where he was being paid a large amount of money, and that also in the course of doing his work as chief marketing officer to bring in all of these guests, he was getting a bunch of memorabilia signed for himself and then selling it kind of out the back door to make additional money. Now, this sounds like and that he was giving better deals to the celebrities. So he was paying the celebrities out of Wizard World corporate money and profiting personally from the sale of the merchandise. That's what's alleged in the dismissal.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly know that the whole business with the selling of the merchandise, I mean, that's not new. I mean,
no, this happens in the convention business all the time. Yes.
But there's the whole business with the actual contracts with the guests. That was the one for myself, that was about 4 or 5 paragraphs down, and that was where the shoe the penny just dropped. It just where the troubles have been.
Well, one of the things that's happened with the convention business is that all of this competition has created a huge amount of dollar, inflation to get the guests at your show. So not only the top line celebrity guests, but the B and C level guests, the Adam Wests and the Richard Hatches of the world, that you want to sort of fill in your autograph tables, even the people, the A-level, the Rob Liefelds and people like that who are, recognized comic creators are starting to get more guaranteed money. So it's rising the cost for everybody. So people are not in the business. We're not really happy with that development because it just made it harder to put on good shows. It made it more expensive to get guests. It made it more expensive for fans. So all of these things were sort of driving up, and Wizard World was one of the driving forces behind that because they were just throwing money around to get people in there. So it's kind of an explosive charge to say, well, they were doing that in part because, to line the pockets of one of their executives. That's in dispute. I mean, Stephen Seamus is being sued, and he's countersuing, saying that none of that is true. None of that is against the standards and practices of what was going on in the company, that he has paperwork to prove that he was entitled to all of the money that he was getting. So it's a very messy thing, and they drove Kenny Seamus off the board at the same time. But the more you dig into this, it's like the Seamuses are people that are, love him or hate him, part of fandom.
Yeah.
Kessler is a financial guy, and his business is running these, very exotic corporate credit instruments where he'll loan a company money in exchange for shares, and he'll come in and take over the company and things like that. He does these sort of very high-end real estate deals in New York and stuff like that. What his connection is to the comics and convention space is not very clear. John Mata, the CEO, had no experience at all doing conventions or events whatsoever before he was taking over this company. So What these guys are up to is a lot less clear to me than what the Seamuses are up to. And the more you look at this and the fact that Wizard moved offices into a building that is owned by Kessler's company, and then they prepaid the rent for 2 years to the tune of $200,000, then 3 months later they come back and say, sorry, we're out of cash.
That blew me away.
That's kind of a head scratcher, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
if you need money, maybe as the landlord of the company, you should give them back some of that prepaid rent, and we'll go month to month for a little while. It seems like that would be an easy conversation to have since it's your own company. But they created the cash flow crunch in order to issue new shares, enter into another arrangement with his existing company, and now, because of the dilution of the shares, he now has controlling interest because of the way that he exercised the options.
Well, that's something that I noticed in the article that you wrote in November regarding that the Seamus brothers and the group still own 40% of the company. Is that still the case?
No, they got diluted.
They did, yeah.
So they raised $2.3 million worth of cash or something like that in this offering. And the way it works is that this company that Kessler runs, they're basically a payday lender for financially distressed companies. So they loan the money on really bad terms, and you have to give up a huge amount of equity in your company in order to close the financing on it. So they did that. It's his own company. He exercised the options that he issued to himself in exchange for the credit. And as a result, everybody else's stake in the company got less because they issued new stock. And so he now has a controlling interest. And the Seamuses, Macaluso, and the other investors, including the people who bought shares because they were for sale on the floor of Wizard conventions, they were selling the shares to fans. And these are penny stocks. I mean, it's not like we're talking like big finance here. These are stocks that are worth, on a good day, they're worth 50 cents. And on a bad day, which they've been having lately, they're worth 16 or 17 cents.
But it's a shameless grab to dilute the shares of the Seamus brothers. I mean, it's pretty blatant what they're trying to do here. I mean, these are big money people who are coming in and effectively co-opting and gutting. It seemed, I mean, I don't know. This is from a layman who doesn't really understand business, but that's the perception that I'm getting from your articles.
So that certainly appears to be what happens. And I don't want to impute motives to the new ownership. I have no personal insight into what's going on, and I don't want to defame them or anything. That on the other side of it, they can say, look, the company lost $4.5 million under the old management last year. We as the owners of the company have a financial responsibility to come in and right the ship. We're going to get rid of the people who are the problem. We're going to put new money in. We're going to take control of the company, and we're going to take it in a different direction. And that's a perfectly plausible storyline that fits what happened here. But the problem is when you look deeper at it, it may be the case that if you were a financier that's just looking for a financially vulnerable company, that you could come in, take over, load up with debt, and then leave for dead after it, that storyline fits these facts also. So it's not clear exactly which way it's going.
Unbelievable. I mean, I'm also seeing the article as well that you've written also was talking about a white knight to the rescue with Jerick Media Holdings with the possibility of reviving this. I mean, is that someone that they could dump the company to?
So the timeline on this was really interesting because there was the Seamus countersuit and there was all of this information, and then in their financial disclosure on Monday of last week, Wizard announced we're out of money, we're screwed. Their stock took a huge dive, presumably to lay the groundwork for this deal that Kessler was trying to put in. On Thursday, Jerick Media Holdings, which is a company, so they're most notable for owning the Guccione penthouse content. That after Guccione died, they came in and they bought up like all of the penthouse content for whatever that's worth. And they run a bunch of these sort of media companies that are trying to get into the nerd media space. So when this offer came across the wires, they basically issued a press release that said we're interested in acquiring Wizard on Thursday afternoon. So I went and I looked at the company. I thought, this company only has $16,000 in the bank. Like, how are they going to? And they have $1.5 million worth of debt. Like, what the hell is, like, who are these people? What kind of? I mean, I understand Wizard is not doing well, but you need a little bit more change in your pocket than that. It probably would have taken, probably $6 or $7 million at the stock price that it was at to make a credible offer. But then when you look at the guy that started the company, money is not his problem. If you read this book called Flash Boys, which is about high-frequency trading and the money that's being made on Wall Street by these people that are getting in between these gigantic transactions, and in a millisecond they hit the button on their computer and they siphon off just a little bit of the trades that are going through. This is how this guy makes his money, and he's worth lots and lots and lots of money. So if this guy wants to get into the convention space for whatever Wizard World is worth, and what is Wizard World worth? Just their brand and their mailing list and their existing commitments, but they're really a troubled company right now. So even if you had that kind of money, the question is, what are you buying, and wouldn't you be better off just starting your own company to get to do what they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, you've put in the article, you mentioned about the Penthouse franchise, which they have in their assets, but they're also talking about this Geeks, which dives into the storied worlds of Comic-Con's video games. I've not actually heard of these guys. I've not heard of.
No, nobody has heard of them.
No one seems to. There's no real kind of substance.
There isn't. But so as I was investigating this, there's a very interesting thing about the founder of this company, the guy from the Flash Boys, and that is that he is a distinguished alumni of SUNY State University of New York at Albany in economics, a degree that he earned in the early 90s. By complete coincidence, Gareb Shamus also attended SUNY in the economics department. Now, what are the odds that the former CEO of this company happens to have a classmate from the old boys days that's worth millions of dollars that comes across with an offer for his company just at the exact right moment when all of this power play is happening? That's just mind-boggling to me. What a strange world we live in that could happen.
Wow.
Now I have no proof that other than circumstantial, but that just strikes me as a very interesting development. So what's happened is on Friday, Wizard World announced that they took the financing anyway, that it was being offered by Kessler. The reason being, that deal has probably been in the works for quite a while. This offer comes in at the 11th hour. They're not, required to consider. When I called the company to find out if anything had changed with the status of their offer because this deal went through, they had no comment. They said the only thing that we can say is we stand by our press release. So we don't know what the status of that offer is. But if I'm a shareholder and I was interested in challenging the legitimacy of what Kessler and Mata and the board are doing, suddenly the fact that there's a good faith offer on the table that the board didn't even consider is something that you could say, well, is that responsible action by the board of directors? Should we be suing them as a shareholder action? So it lays the groundwork for other options if those people want to do that.
What's the kind of timeline on this for any future, or for the imminent deals? I mean, at the end of the day, Wizard World have got a convention lined up for New Orleans beginning of next year, taking place 6th, 7th, and 8th in the Ernst L. Morale Convention Center. So it's only 26 days away.
That's right.
So what's the timeline? I mean, is this something that could happen really imminently and really quickly in terms of the deals that could... Is that something that
they got their money,
or is that something that needs to happen very quickly?
My understanding is that last Friday they closed the deal. They got the money in the bank. The shares were issued. The Kessler exercised his options on the shares and converted them to equity and took control of the company. And now the company has $2.5 million in the bank to continue its operations on into 2017. So, everything that had to happen for them to not go out of business has happened. And the consequences of that are that the ownership of the company is now different, and that the ownership group has authority that they didn't have before, and they don't need to go to the other shareholders.
But they've got the lawsuit from Stephen Seamus pending, and they've got the potential lawsuit from the shareholders who could possibly question that deal.
So Seamus sent out his deposition list of who he wants to sue in the case and stuff like that. Bleeding Cool, I think, got that yesterday, and I was looking through it. So he's got this whole list of people that he wants to depose. But the bottom line is, I think he's asking for $600,000 to make him go away. And, if I were them, I would, to me, that's a settlable amount at about $300,000 maybe, or something like that. You make him an offer and that goes away. My thought is, if they wanted this guy gone, there are ways to have made that happen without raising this big stink. It's very curious to me why they went the route that they did. I mean, maybe there was just a untenable situation in the company, and they couldn't make him go away. But it seems like, especially when you're facing a cash crunch, you just prepaid all this rent, you have a whole slate of shows that's coming, you're losing money all over the place. The last thing you need is like unforeseen legal liabilities hanging over you on top of everything.
But then again, it's when you it's like you did say that the Seamus brothers were very much the public face of Wizard World, and they are known within fandom. This kind of cuts the legs from underneath them. This is very much a public dethroning.
Yeah, indeed.
I'm just wondering if that's the motivations. Just kind of really not a case of just let's get him out of the way, out of the back door. Let's literally make a very big stink about this and shove him out the front door, as it were.
Indeed. And I think, again, that's if they're trying to like reboot the brand from the ground up and get rid of everything that has come before, that's a defensible strategy of the new ownership. Like if they are actually interested in running the company better than it's been run, and they're not just trying to bleed every last dollar out of the rotting corpse of the company before they cut it loose, then this is what you would do. You would get rid of these guys because, whatever you think of the Seamus brothers, they are not universally loved. Their operations are not, this is kind of a sordid story because there's really not that many good guys here. To me, the good guys are the people that run the Wizard shows in good faith and are trying to do right by the fans, the people that are programming the events and going to the shows and trying to make these fun because conventions are fun. It's not
the people on the ground floor, as it were, not necessarily the money men in the back rooms. Yeah,
exactly. So all of these shenanigans that are going on is really unfortunate from the fan perspective, because if you live in San Antonio or Nashville or Madison, Wisconsin, or one of these secondary markets where Wizard is your show, you don't want to see this happen because this is your show, and that if that show goes away, then you got to drive 3 hours to Chicago or Dallas or to the nearby big show to see the same caliber of talent. And what Wizard was actually trying to do to bring those kind of experiences to places that don't get them all the time is a good thing for fandom. It's good for the fans that live there. So you kind of want, if not Wizard itself and their current management to succeed, you want something like that to succeed just because it's good for the community. But now it's kind of, I mean, the problem is that it's kind of creating a specter of problem over the entire industry, and it's making a lot of people sort of scratch their heads and say, do I want to do business with these guys under any circumstances? Like if you're a guest and you're due a six-figure check to appear at one of their shows, like I'm getting my payment in gold bullion right now. Like I'm not waiting for that check to clear.
Well, I mean, it's something I was going to point out there. I mean, you're talking about this, like you said, a great description, this specter that is hanging over fandom at the moment. I mean, I think that actually is also tied back to a story that we covered about a month or so ago regarding Stephen Amell and his company that is set up. And I think a lot of people are now starting to join the dots between the land of fandom and the money that's happening in the background, the machinations that are taking place. And I think that's where a lot of people are getting interested, because we've got people that's jumping in on the Q&A. This is Michael P. I was at Wizard World in Raleigh. I knew there were problems. I was also at New Orleans. It was not right. There was a feeling there that was just not that was pervading the whole event. From a fan perspective, now this one I might disagree with. I think it would be wise to let the dust settle before going to any Wizard World convention. I think this is more that from a fandom's perspective, it's like you say, the people that are on the ground floor that are actually making the event what it is, still makes it worthwhile. But at the end of the day, we could see the whole thing with just the rug being pulled out from underneath. It's the background stuff, which
I think what Michael is saying is that we might not want to spend $500 or $600 on the VIP packages at Wizard World, and
yeah,
you know that.
I mean, the thing is, the fans are completely unprotected in that case, and it's like, you know, if you pay your money and then the company goes out of business, anybody that prepaid for stuff that isn't going to happen, they're going to be last in line for the creditors that's going to get paid back from that. And the exhibitors who prepaid for their tables at the shows and then the show doesn't happen, they're going to get screwed. And so it's, you know, as these things happen, the people that bear the costs are the ones least able to afford it. And so, you know, I mean, it's every fan's decision about what they want to do to go to the show, and it's not the fault of the operational people or the exhibitors or even the guests when these things go south. It is decisions that are, you know, above that for the most part. So yeah, I would say be careful, watch your wallet, and I would say that goes for exhibitors too. That if you're buying a table at one of these shows, they did a show. There was a Wizard World show in Pittsburgh in November that was so poorly promoted and consequently poorly attended that they were actually giving exhibitors, Wizard World was actually giving exhibitors credits toward exhibiting at future shows as a way of making good on the fact that this show was such a catastrophe. And that's, you know, that's kind of the downside of it.
Yeah.
And that kind of dovetails into one of the questions earlier you had said, Rob, that Wizard World was marketing right at the same time that the local conventions shows were occurring. This was back 3 or 4 years ago. So they in effect drove the existing conventions that were in place out of business. And so there's nothing to replace them. The Wizard Worlds.
Yeah, I mean, there's always an opportunity for that, and of course, they're not the only player in the market. Where Wizard World does well is in Chicago and Philadelphia. Those are their big shows, and you know, there's already C2E2 that is a ReedPop show that is spoiling for they want to be the Chicago show, and you know, like there's this other. So I think, you know, it creates an opportunity for them. Philadelphia is another really interesting market because it's right between New York and Washington. It's a 4 million person city in its own right. And, you know, that Wizard World show is a really good weekend. It's in the middle of May, which is like, you know, kind of headroom away from other big shows that are in the circuit. If I were ReedPop, or even Comic-Con International, and thinking about doing an East Coast show to go with San Diego, Philadelphia would be a great place to be because it's not New York. It doesn't have those costs. It's not Washington, D.C., but you're getting from everywhere. And Philadelphia has a pretty good convention center and the capacity to host a convention that has 100,000 people. Like, there's nothing that says that Wizard World has to be that show, and they're not the only ones in town. So I mean, even if they can right their ship, doesn't guarantee that they're going to continue to be viable.
Yeah, I would say that ReedPop are possibly the better player in the options that you put forward there. Getting getting Comic-Con International out of California, I think is going to be a little bit harder than I suspect. So I suspect ReedPop are probably the player that is more likely there.
Have me on again, because I'm going to write some stuff about Comic-Con International at some point, because they've been making some interesting moves in the background. So I agree with they're what should I say, inscrutable, and because they're a nonprofit and they don't have public disclosure of a lot of stuff, and because the core group that runs that show is so sort of long-term and mission-driven, they don't operate by regular business logic. So the things that you would say, you know, if you were trying to maximize your money, they would do certain kinds of things, and they're doing other things. There are some signs that they are considering if only to protect their brand, to go a little bit more on the offensive than they have been in the past.
Well, we're going to lead on to that with the next item that we're going to talk about, because there's things that I mean, we've been talking about this behind the scenes, kind of just the way that Comic-Con have been behaving, and yeah, I would absolutely love to have you on to talk about that. That would be a interesting topic.
Absolutely, simply because the changes that have gone on this year. I was talking to Leonard before the show happened, and I was just saying, usually my background is in production, so usually I can kind of get an idea about how things go. You know, when things are going to be offered, you know, for sale and press passes and the like. You know the schedule. This year, they're way off. There's something happening that we don't know about yet, and I'm searching for just something to grab a hold of to try and figure out what CCI is up to, because it's confusing me. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this, Rob, at a later date, when, you know, after your articles have written. I will say I've gotten a little bit into your book, the con. Help me with the name here.
Comic-Con and the Business of Pop Culture.
On Amazon. Well, yes,
I happen to have one right here. Yes.
Very good.
Everybody, I really wouldn't mind that for Christmas present. Just
yes, I put that one on my list too. I got in just a little bit into the introduction of it. I'm sorry to say I hadn't read it beforehand, and it's well written and highly, you know, as much as I can highly recommend a book that I haven't yet read. I would recommend this one if you want to know what's going on beforehand.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. And you know, it's a few years in the past now, so it has it's become almost like a snapshot of what was happening at that particular moment. And then at the end of the book, I get into some of the forecasts about where things could go from the moment I was writing, which was 2011, 2012, and how are things going to look in 2016, 2017, 2018. And it's kind of interesting to see. There was a couple of places where I think I hit the bullseye, and a couple of places that have not quite developed the but we'll see what happens. I mean, it's an interesting moment.
Space, yeah.
Yes.
I do quite like. There's a couple of comments that are coming in on the Hangout, on the chat room. Aaron Neighbors is actually asking. He's obviously enjoying the show and enjoying your dulcet tones. Is there an audiobook for?
There is an audiobook. It just came out over the summer. Actually.
There you go.
Yes.
It's on. It is on Amazon. They've got an audio free with your audio trial. So you can, it's an Audible book. And
that's correct, yeah.
Yeah, and they've got a Kindle version too.
Excellent. So
there's a bunch of them out there.
Cool. Right, I do want to have you back on the show, because like you say, I think certainly the developments with Wizard World, I'm very curious, certainly after this show that's taking place in January, I want to see where the land lies, and certainly with what happens in the new year. Like you say, it's still in development. I mean, there's still stuff happening, and I'm very curious to see how the dust will settle on this. So we would absolutely love to have you back, and thank you so much for joining us. It's just been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Excellent. So just before we do let you go, then, I know we've kind of talked about the book and talked about all your the bits and pieces where people can find you. Where can people find you online to read more? Well,
so I'm fairly active on Twitter at RobSalk, ROBSALK. I write for Forbes, so on Forbes 5 or 6 times a month, and if you go to the media and entertainment site on Forbes, but I'll tweet those out. And then I also write for ICV2, which is the trade publication for the hobby and gaming industry, and that's where I write a lot of my sort of inside baseball stuff about the convention business. Strangely, the Forbes people are more interested in the celebrity stuff, and the Comic-Con industry are the ones that are really interested in the business stories.
Well, that's just typical. That's just typical.
I catch you on the on your IC2 site very often, and I always look forward to reading your articles on there. Very informative, and they have enough depth and background to them so you can really sink your teeth into it and get an idea about how the whole money is flowing, because that's the interesting thing with the conventions. And since with the whole boom that's happened recently, and I appreciate your bringing your business background and explaining it to us non-business folks. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It takes a special kind of nerd to be interested in the sausage making of the nerd industry, I'll tell you. So I'm glad people appreciate it.
We really do. Rob, thank you very much indeed. We'll let you get off and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you very much indeed, sir.
Thanks. Take care.
Excellent stuff.
Bye-bye.
That's fantastic. Wow. So there you go. Hopefully that's given you a little bit more background. I mean, he really knows his stuff, and it was great. I mean, myself and Alyssa, we could have kind of picked our way through, but to have someone who really knows what's been going on, and it's just sounding fascinating, the way that the machinations are just being playing off in the background. It's just, yeah, this is a story in progress. This is not over yet. So
absolutely.
Yeah,
I've had an opportunity to see Rob speak on a panel at New York. I think it was at New York Comic-Con 2 years ago, and he is regularly on panels. I believe at San Diego last year he was on 4 or 5 panels, or maybe 3. I'm not sure. Don't quote me. But I know that he was at at New York this past year, and I was unfortunately unable to see him. But he always brings an interesting perspective. In addition to the whole following of the money thing, he does a lot with culture too. So you really kind of get an idea about he brings the tribe aspect into the business aspect also. So it's not just follow the money. It kind of brings the motivation into it also. I had
okay. Well, we do have the other aspect that we want to talk about. I mean, we did want to talk about Comic-Con International. Like I say, there's we kind of hinted it there. There has been a whole bunch of machinations that are going on in the background, but certainly something that happened this week. This was on. Now we talked about this, and we actually got the date right. It was Wednesday when this happened, on the 7th. This was pointed out by. I'm trying to remember who would. Well, I mean, the first thing that happened for myself was a RSS feed, which I do automatically retweet out from Comic-Con International. So this came directly from them, and this was the release of the WonderCon badges for Anaheim. Now, this is an event that's going to be taking place, I believe, in March. I think, it's March that's happening. And
31st.
And the badges are on sale now. And what I wanted to do for this show is actually talk our way through that process, purely because this also, I mean, there's 1 or 2 people that have asked whether this could be the future of badge sales for Comic-Con International, in terms of San Diego, perhaps. I'm not entirely sure, purely because at the end of the day, it's all down to the traffic that a website can handle. And at the end of the day, I don't know if the Comic-Con International, comic-con.org site can handle the sheer numbers that it could do. But at the end of the day, the way they've done it is a kind of, the site is open, you can buy the badges in kind of like an old school method. They just announce it, but it's already open. Alyssa, go for it.
I think the site can handle it. The reason being, if they have the waiting room as they have had it before, so I'm pretty sure that they can scale up to, as long as they balance their loads, they can scale up to the capacity.
Okay. Well,
the question.
Let's go through the process. Let's see
sure.
how it goes.
But, okay, great.
Because
Go ahead.
I'm not going to lie. This is the first time I've seen these pages. I've been talking to people online about it, but I wanted to go into this completely fresh. So you're seeing this exactly how I would see it, and how, if you are wanting to buy WonderCon badges, this is how you would see the pages. You're not going to see my credit card details, and because you can't actually get your badges mailed to you, they can only go to US addresses. There happens to be a US address that I know of, which I'm going to have them mailed to if I don't get them refunded. But as it happens, this event takes place in March. I cannot afford to go to this thing yet. Who knows what can happen in 2 months? But for the moment, I'm doing this just to kind of show you how the process works. So let's go to screen share, and let's bring up the site. So this is what you see. This is the comic-con.org site. If you click on your member ID and sign in, and you have you see my member ID there, which no one else can use because you don't see my password. So there we go. But I'm here now on the notices page, and this is letting you know this is the update that was also posted on their Talkin blog this week. WonderCon badges are on sale now. Badges will be mailed out in advance. The deadline to change your mailing address is the 27th of February. We are unable to ship badges to an international address. If you are an international attendee, purchase your badge after February 27th. You'll be able to pick it up at the attendee registration area when you arrive. So we'll go from that. So we go to the registration info. And at the moment, I am not eligible for the returning registration because it was a press badge holder, so I'm going to have to buy my badges in the main melee, as it were, or indeed go through press. But that's a whole other ball game. This is where we are right now, the attendee registration. So purchase badges. Okay, so you end up landing on this page. This is the registration, and you have the choice of an adult 3-day badge at $65, which I think is perfectly reasonable. Adult Friday at $30, adult Saturday at $30, and an adult Sunday at $18. So what I'm going to do is actually go through the process. If we just look at the rest of the page as well. So there we go. This is all being done by San Diego Comic-Con. It's not being held or organized by a third party. It's all being done by the company themselves. So let's click.
That's a great point. I did not realize that Epic isn't doing their registration this year.
It's not. It's not. Well, for this event, it's not.
Right.
It's all being done by CCI. It's almost as if they were slightly kerfuffled by Epic's and have been kerfuffled by Epic's behavior over the last couple of years. But let's not dwell on that. So let's go to this. So selecting an adult 3-day badge brings up and puts it into a cart. Lets you know the member ID, lets you know the badge type, and indeed the how much is getting charged. At which point you just go to agree to terms and conditions. At which point you then just go to your pay with card. This is so simple. This is so ridiculously simple. At which point I'm now going to turn off screen sharing, if you don't mind, just for a second. If I go to that and just come off that, bear with me. I'm just going to put in.
I do have a question for you while you're putting that information in.
Sure.
Did you see any spot for adding a second or third person into
not yet
that cart?
It is literally just, it's for yourself and for yourself only.
I think Aaron brought up an interesting point earlier that it was kind of annoying, and this was a day or two ago, that he had to go through and actually go into each person's member ID to buy their badge, which is going to be a problem if they use this same system going forward for San Diego.
Sure. Just to let you know what has come up in that badge payment process box. There's the area to put your card details, the expiry date, and the credit. The security code at the back. There's also a Remember Me box, which when you click on it, it brings up, for security, please enter your mobile phone number. At which point I have done. So then there's a nice big button at the bottom, pay $65.
Before you click that, click check off the box for remember me.
Ah, well, I just did it.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Bear with me a second. If I can just let me just bear with me because I want to show this as well. Let's go to screen share again and go back to this. Sorry, I just want to show you this. This is going back to the page again. And it's saying no badges. You currently don't have any WonderCon badges. However, I have received a text message from a telephone number, American-based. Thanks for saving your payment info with Stripe. This number will be used to verify your identity at Comic-Con, WonderCon Anaheim, and other sites using Stripe checkout. So there's that. But apparently the payment has gone through. So it's now a case of what happens next. Indeed. So I'm going to have to very quickly go to my email, which I'm guessing is going to be a kind of confirm this to accept the badges or accept the purchase. Is that right?
I think you've already done it. My recollection is that box is indicating on the WonderCon page was indicating that you don't have any in your cart at that point. That was my interpretation of it. Now I could be wrong, and I am working off of a week-old memory. WEEK, not WEAK, but a memory from last week. So I don't recall, but that was my impression of that box when I saw it. I did get an email confirmation, and I did get the Stripe. Thank you for remembering my credit card number from Stripe too. So that's why I suggested that you selected that that box, because it's interesting to me that they were using a different system. They're using Stripe as and that makes sense given the fact that you pointed out that they're not using Epic. I thought Epic had done an upgrade. I didn't realize that CCI was doing their own system entirely.
Yeah. Now, I've actually clicked on the link in the text message that was sent to me just to see what the process was. This is with Stripe. This is more checkout getting started and basically authenticating my credit card again. But I'm trying to find a confirmation because I haven't had an email sent through as yet. And at the moment, if I go to the screen share again, just to show the WonderCon page again, people, I mean, if you have bought WonderCon badges, please do let us know. At the moment, it is saying that I currently do not have any WonderCon badges. Now, it's like you're saying that it is just purchasing for yourself. So if you are...
Did you select, up at the top, did you select a 3-day badge?
Yes, I did.
Try it again.
And I don't want to pay twice.
I understand. I got your point.
Yeah, okay. Well, thankfully, it's not showing all my details, but there we go. But yeah, it's okay. There we go. But that's fine.
But it still has.
Hey, if someone wants to contact me on that email address, hey, you're more than welcome.
No, if you went back to that page, which I can understand not wanting to, in that lower box, in the the last box on the left-hand side, it did say that you had no badges still.
Yeah.
My badges.
Which is there. I just hold it back on that. So at this point, I'm guessing it's now a case of waiting on the email to come through from waiting on an email. So I will wait on that. But okay, let's just talk about the actual process then. If it went smoothly, and I'll check and I'll make sure that everything's gone through, because according to the payment, or according to the text that I've made a payment. So it's all been done via the comic-con.org website. Let me just go back to the chat room. Let's just see if anyone else has put Leonard on the bottom right, check out now, pay with card, which I had done. So just go to no, yeah, I have already done that. Technically, I paid. I wouldn't want to click it again because I don't want to pay twice. So let's just let's try it. Let's go to pay $65.
I received a WonderCon receipt
Right
on December 6th.
I'm just wondering if I'm paying multiple times here.
That's a bug. If you do end up paying, because you should only be able to buy one badge, and that is something that should absolutely be reported to Comic-Con International.
Sure, because the Sarita Pearson just turned around and said, well, click on the checkout now, at which point the box came up again and it said pay with card. The thing is, I clicked on that once already, which means I'm wondering if I've bought 2 badges or 2 3-day badges, and how that is even possible.
But that shouldn't be possible. You should not be able to have 2 badges in your name. They're we all know about Comic-Con.
So like, this is the reason why we wanted to do this. We wanted to see what the process was. Let me just see if anything showed up in my junk email. Nope, nothing's arrived yet. So
yeah, I'm trying to figure out how soon after I bought my badge I received that email. And I don't remember, but it was signed by Stripe.
Michael P, it won't let me buy another badge. In fact, the option is not available. So
we think you didn't buy a badge.
It doesn't seem as such. I'm not too sure. I do quite like the idea that I mean, there's a couple of comments that are coming in. Karen Session, they can do it that way for WonderCon because there's not the same amount of demand for badges as there is for Comic-Con International, for San Diego, sorry. But that's what we're trying to work out, if there is a process in place which will allow that to happen. Putting forward a very legitimate point, frankly, and it's something that will give me a moment of pause about this whole change of process, that we don't get any more animated blue circles. I'm sorry, but that's now a part of Comic-Con for me. The blue circle of death. It's part of the process. It has to be included.
It's kind of like having to stand in a long, massive, infinite line. You have to do it. You've got to do it. You're not at Comic-Con unless you stare at a circle for hours, or you stand in a long line.
Maybe the missus purchased a gift ticket for you already, Leonard. Very unlikely.
No.
Very unlikely indeed. This would involve her actually knowing what I want for Christmas. I'm a pain in, I'm a bugger for that. I really am. Sarita P, maybe 24 hours. Fair enough. Well, tell you what, I will let it rest here now, and we'll come back to it. I will keep you up to date on Englishman SCCC on Twitter. If you do want to keep an eye, I'll also post it using the hashtag #CupOTSDCC. So if you search for that hashtag over the course of the next couple of days, I'll let you know how the process will continue. But yeah, I mean, this whole business, which Michael P is saying, that it won't let me buy another badge. In fact, the option is not available. I'm just wondering what's going on and where it is at this process. So maybe, like you say, there is a bug involved, but we'll see. We'll let it go for 24 hours and we'll see what happens. Certainly in terms of any emails that come through, we'll to be continued.
Actually, let me just give a timeline here. The first post on the forum, which is usually pretty accurate for in terms of these kinds of things, they really catch these quickly, was at 8:15 in the evening. The second post, I bought my badge. I've got a post on the forum that says I bought my badge at 9:15 9:15, and on my email receipts, I've got something that says at 9 o'clock, I've got a receipt. So I must have bought my badge in the 8:45, between 8:15 and 8:45 time frame, and received an email receipt within 15 minutes of the buying of my badge. So my thought is that you didn't get your badge.
No. I'm also looking at this, the checkout getting started page. Apparently, what happens is on the top section, it's a shame that I can't actually show you too much of the screen. This is account registration. Remember to click me to securely store your credit card for faster checkout. It then says, for security, please enter your mobile number, at which point you then use a one-click payment to make a payment. Then you get sent a verification code as an authentication of the actual account. The only downside to that is it's trying to send it to an American telephone number, and it's not allowing me the option to then change it to an English number. But how the heck, but the question is then, but the question then becomes, if they can't send it to an American, they only have to send it to an American phone number. How did I get the first? Sorry, you can't quite. It's a little bit too bright.
Yeah, you can't see it.
Yeah, you can't see it. How did I get the first text? What the hell is going on? Okay.
This sounds like it's worth a bug report.
I think so too.
You know, for international customers, it sounds as though that there absolutely is worth a bug report.
What we actually needed was an American who's willing to spend us $65. But there we go. Never mind. But we wanted to show the process. At least if we kind of like take the process as if it worked fine. If we weren't dealing with the whole Stripe authentication in the background, which actually sounds like a clever process. Actually, I think I'm curious to see if indeed you could implement this for San Diego. And I think you're right. I think this provides a buffering to the whole buying process. It's doing it not for the tickets area, it's doing it on the payment end. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of it's shifting the buffering to a different process. I'm just I'm curious about that.
I'm not so sure that that's I'd have to think that through. My thinking was with regards to if this process was used for San Diego, that it would be a little bit more difficult because of the multiple member IDs and that whole process. That's why I was thinking it would be, but historically, CCI has used a different system for WonderCon than they've used for San Diego Comic-Con. So we could be seeing the old system. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But CCI is doing a lot of changes this year. So I think a lot of the preconceived notions are out the window with regards to what they're going to do. And I am really looking forward to Rob's articles in that Insider's in that trade magazine, ICV2. If you guys don't follow it, it comes to your mailbox every day. Highly recommend that. It's in addition to fun stuff like the new trailers for Spider-Man, which looked really good. It also has some heavier hitting articles about from Rob, but also about industry, your local comic book stores. They've got another article about a comic distributor that's closing its doors. So it's worth reading. Again, it's icv2.com, and go in and sign up for their emails. It's definitely worth it. Anything else about WonderCon?
No, I think we'll do. I think we'll do we were going to cover like guests and stuff and other elements to WonderCon, but I think we'll do that at a later date because we have taken up time in terms of Wizard World bits and pieces. So we'll come back to that possibly in a show next year, as we'll talk about WonderCon. That's March 31st, April 2nd. So we'll do a update on guests and what you can expect, considering that this will be the return to Anaheim Convention Center. I want to try and get somebody who went to LA to find out what Comic-Con can learn from that trip to LA. The whole process of whether it was a success or a failure, and what they can learn from that different venue which they had. Right, before we do wrap things up then, Alyssa, I know you want to talk about the week in TV.
Yes, before we go much farther, I did a deep look at the director of Arrival, and so I'm going to mispronounce the name. Mark will kill me. Sekiro movie. The name of the director is Brian Dennis Villeneuve.
Dennis Villeneuve.
Villeneuve, highly recommended director. He's going to be directing the new Blade Runner 49, along with the same composer. I'm really looking forward to Blade Runner 49 because of his directing of Arrival and Sekiro. His brilliant. Absolutely, just even got Lewis as he was walking through the living room as I was watching it. He was like, wow, and sat down and watched the end of the movie with me. It was very cool. Very cool. But with regards to the weekend television, there's a lot of fall finales happening. The Walking Dead, Blunt Talk, Last Man on Earth, Talking Dead, Comic Book Man, Timeless, The Big Bang Theory, they're all doing their fall finales tonight. Actually, Blunt Talk, forgive me, and Z Nation and The Exorcist and Ash vs. Evil Dead are wrapping up their seasons this week too. So we're not going to see them again, those shows again, for another year. The first group of shows that I mentioned, The Walking Dead, Big Bang Theory, we'll see those again starting up probably February, March, somewhere in that time frame. So we will get the back end, a back end to those shows. There is season 2 of Amazon's Man in a High Castle will be on tonight. Not tonight, next Friday. So if you're a Man in a High Castle show, would recommend watching that. I'm just, at the same time, I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my WordPress site and why it hasn't published. It will publish shortly if it hasn't already. So that's one show, but there's another show happening on the Fox network called Stars, and it's not your traditional geek fare, but it's got some pretty high caliber musical talent. And while the script I'm not so sure about, because it could degenerate into soap opera land, the music, from what I've heard, I mean, Lenny Kravitz is associated with it, and I think Leonard has something to say about this show.
No, it's not about the show. We'll come back to it. There's something else.
Okay. Sure. It will be worth listening to the music of it if it's not worth watching the show. Stars, it's on FX, and I think it's on Wednesday here in the States. I don't know when it premieres over on your side, Leonard. I do want to say that there has been a lot of activity in teasers for the January and February shows. Season 2 teaser trailer for The Expanse dropped, and just mind-blowingly amazing. I've linked to it on my post. Go out and watch that. If there's any other shows that seem really of interest to folks, let us know, and we'll try and feature them in the weekend television. And now we have Christmas after.
Well, indeed. Just one last program that I know that we were talking about, shows ending and all the bits and pieces. It's great to see that the greatest television show that I have seen in a very, very long time. Finished exactly how I wanted it to do. Westworld was truly staggering. I think anyone who watched it will agree with me. I know that I had a conversation with Kerry Dixon from the Unofficial Blog. She wasn't utterly convinced. She felt that the show was more gearing towards setting up the mystery box rather than actually developing character, where I felt that the characters were absolutely strong enough to hold the show together, and I was very much impressed with what they did with Westworld, those 10 episodes. In those 10 episodes, they asked the big questions of AI and our relationship as the human interaction with AI, all the questions that they wanted to ask in the film Ex Machina, and they actually asked them. And then they actually did some... I was very much struck with Westworld. If you get the chance to watch it all, do check it out. Right.
Now that Ash versus Evil Dead and Blunt Talk are done, I will indeed switch off Stars and switch on HBO and binge it. So you'll probably get a mini review of Westworld over the holidays.
Any questions you need to ask, let me know, because they're probably the ones I'm asking as well. So there we go.
Okay. Sounds good. We'll have a whole show on Westworld when Mark's here.
Cool. Very quickly, I did check my... I was wondering why it was not accepting the payment, even though it was bringing up a green tick on the payment on the checkout. At which point I have then gone into my bank account and realized I didn't actually have $65 worth in that account. So I've gone to my other card. So I just want to show you this. This is the page. I've used another card. It's saying that the card is currently empty, but it does bring up this page here that success, congratulations on your badge purchase. Please log into your member ID account and select the registration info to download your badge purchase confirmation, or click here to download print your registration confirmation. I am going to refund this, so there's no real issues with me showing you this QR code, but what you do get is a QR code, a click here to download, a 3-day confirmation there, a refund cancel button right there in the browser, which is very handy indeed. Let's just right click on that and open it into another tab. Let's just see this looks. This is opening up in another secure to Comic-Con org member ID, and it is a PHP page. It finally decides to load, if it decides to load. There we go. And it is just a printout with all the details for the badge delivery, and indeed for international attendees, printing this out and taking it to the front desk. So there you go. I mean, if we just talk about that very, very quickly once again, then it just seems it's such a simple process.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a simple way of doing it. Wow. Yeah, I'm slightly blown away at just how, and I'm just going to the badge the cancellation now. Confirm cancellation. Done. What the hell is going on? This is way too simple. This is freaking me the hell out.
I want to stand in my 5-hour line to get into Hall H. Well, yeah, no, not really. But
so there we go.
That...
Although Dan Berry is saying, so you won't be going to WonderCon. You guys, if you want to pay for my flights, you're more than welcome to have me there. I want to go. I want to go. But there we go. Right, cool. So there we go. That's all done and dusted. Let's wrap up the show. Thank you very much indeed for watching. I hope you've enjoyed what we've done today. It's a lot. Oh, Dan Berry. It's simple because they don't want silly Brits there. The love I'm feeling. The love.
Who are we going to have next week before you go?
Right. We're fingers crossed we will be getting confirmation that Anthony Bresnikan will be joining us. We will be joined by Mark Serby because we're going to be doing a little bit of a spoiler-free mini review of Rogue One, a Star Wars story which opens this week. If you do get the chance to see it, the chance to see it. Don't worry, it is going to be completely spoiler free, but we are going to be talking about our impressions of the film and looking for it. People are enjoying what we've done today. I think it's been a bloody good show. I've really enjoyed it. But next week is going to be our last one of the year. So do join us for our last one of 2016. So there we go.
We will not be having a show on Christmas Day, in other words.
No, we won't.
No show. We may, though, have...
Because the last thing you need to see is me and my turkey belly. Turkey belly.
Oh, SDCC vet.
Oh, man. Okay.
I'm going to yell that at you, cool. Regardless.
Right. Yeah, I know.
We may
where can people find you online?
At Friends of CC for my Twitter account, at Friends of CC. Oh God, you're doing this to me again. .com/forum for the forum. Absolutely. So we're not going to do one New Year's Day. Might want to tease out a show on New Year's Day if nobody's doing anything. We might
want to do one on New Year's Day, but that may be just kind of like on a whim and a prayer. Bear with us on that.
Depends on how much we had to drink the night before.
Exactly. Just keep your eyes open on your social media. We may do one just as a little chat between myself and Alyssa. Just talk about the festive season and also what we've got planned for 2017. For myself, you can find me at Twitter, Englishman SDCC, and also if you just search for an Englishman in San Diego on all the social medias, I'm pretty much floating around all over the place. If you don't join us next week, we'd just like to wish you all the very best for your festive season. Have yourself a great Christmas, but hopefully you can join us next Sunday, where hopefully we'll be talking to Anthony Bresnikan from Entertainment Weekly. He's been a Hall H host. He's the one that hosted the Aliens reunion this year. The man knows Comic-Con very well, and the idea of being up on stage in front of several thousand people. He's a fascinating guy. If you do follow him on Twitter, you know he knows his entertainment stuff. And I'm really looking forward, hopefully, to speaking to him next week on the show. If not, I think he may be doing a midweek thing. We'll let you know. Keep your eyes open, and we'll let you know. Either way, we will definitely be joined by Mark Serby talking Rogue One next Sunday. And that's us. Do take care. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And from us to you, we'll see you very soon indeed.
Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Jingle bells, jingle all